There are parts of the Bible so frightening and shocking that the official scriptures have hidden them away or banned them. That's right, and one of the most mysterious books is Additions to Daniel. The book of Daniel, the one you might know from Sunday school, tells some pretty amazing stories. But did you know that there's more to it? There are hidden chapters called the Additions to Daniel. The Bible banned these parts because they were so full of mystery and strange events. One of the scariest stories is about a terrifying dragon that people worshipped like a god. This wasn't some friendly dragon from a fairy tale. This was a beast that people were afraid of. But Daniel, a man full of courage and faith, showed everyone that this dragon wasn't powerful at all. He used a clever trick to prove that it was just a false god. Then there's the story of Susanna, a brave woman who stood up against two wicked judges. They tried to get her in trouble for refusing their demands. It's like the classic story of the big bullies picking on someone smaller, but in this case, the bullies were powerful judges. Just when things looked really bad for her, Daniel stepped in, revealing the truth and saving her life. Later, when Daniel refused to stop praying, a den full of hungry lions threw him in. But instead of becoming the lions' dinner, he spent the night safely, as if the lions were his pets. How could this happen? In Babylon, people worshipped a gigantic statue named Bel. Every day, the priests offered enormous amounts of food, 12 measures of flour, 40 sheep, and 6 huge vessels of wine. They believed this statue was a powerful god who consumed all these offerings. But Daniel, known for his wisdom and unshakable faith, wasn't convinced. He told the king, "Your Majesty, don't be fooled. This idol doesn't eat or drink. It's just a lifeless statue made of clay and brass." The king was shocked. How could Daniel say such a thing? After all, the food and wine disappeared every night. But Daniel was determined to reveal the truth. He was aware that the priests of Bel were deceiving the people, including the king. But how could he prove it? Daniel came up with a clever plan. He told the king, "Let's lock the temple doors and seal them with your royal seal. Then we'll sprinkle ashes all over the floor. In the morning, we'll see if there are any footprints." The king agreed, curious to see what would happen. That night, after everyone left, the priests secretly entered the temple through a hidden passage under the altar. They brought their families, feasted on the offerings meant for Bel, and left before dawn, making sure to hide all evidence of their visit. The next morning, the king and Daniel returned to the temple and found the food gone, just as always. But then Daniel pointed to the floor. "Look at these footprints," he said. "These are not the footprints of a god, but of men, women, and children." The king was furious. The priests had been lying to him and the entire city. They had used the secret passage to steal the offerings, deceiving everyone into thinking the statue was a living god. This shocking revelation turned the people's faith upside down. It wasn't just about a statue, it was about uncovering the truth behind a deeply rooted deception. The people of Babylon worshipped another creature, a dragon, a terrifying snake-like being they believed was a living god. When Daniel refused to bow down to it, the king challenged him, saying, "If you do not believe in this dragon, prove it." So Daniel did the unthinkable. He prepared a special mixture of pitch, fat, and hair, a concoction that no living creature could survive. He fed it to the dragon, and soon after, the beast exploded, proving it was no god, but just a mortal creature. The king was stunned. For the second time, Daniel had exposed a great deception, showing the people that their so-called gods were nothing but powerless idols. Daniel's courage to confront the false gods of his time is a lesson for all of us. He wasn't afraid to challenge powerful figures or go against popular opinion. Instead, he used wisdom and faith to reveal the truth, even when it meant risking his own life. And in doing so, he showed us that real power doesn't come from idols or lies, but from standing up for what's true and just. After these events, the people of Babylon began to see things differently. The story of Bel and the dragon wasn't just a tale of uncovering a lie. It was about changing hearts and minds. Daniel's actions showed that the truth has the power to break down even the most towering of false idols. Susanna was known throughout the city for her beauty and devotion to God. She was the wife of a wealthy and respected man named Joachim, and they had a beautiful garden where Susanna would often walk and pray. However, two elders, judges tasked with upholding the law, secretly observed her, consumed by their own wicked desires. These men, who should have been role models of justice, allowed their lust to overpower their duty and honor. One day they found the opportunity they had been waiting for. As Susanna was bathing in her private garden with only her maids nearby, the two elders hid and waited until she was alone. Then they approached her and made a horrifying demand. "Lie with us, or we will accuse you of meeting a young man here and tarnish your reputation." When Susanna refused, the elders did exactly what they threatened. They cried out, pretending to be shocked, and accused her of being with another man. Soon, the entire community gathered, believing the words of these respected judges. The elders brought Susanna before the people and falsely claimed to have witnessed her commit adultery. The people were outraged, not because they doubted her innocence, but because the words of these men, who were considered trustworthy leaders, seemed convincing. In those days, a woman's word often meant little against the accusations of men, especially those in positions of power. Susanna appeared destined for condemnation without a fair trial, with no one willing to believe her side of the story. But Susanna did not lose hope. Even in the face of such overwhelming odds, she trusted that God would reveal the truth. Just as the crowd was about to condemn her, a young man named Daniel, known for his wisdom and faith, stepped forward. He couldn't watch lies destroy an innocent person. Daniel spoke boldly to the people, questioning why they were so quick to believe these men without any real proof. He proposed separating and questioning the elders individually, a tactic still employed today to uncover the truth when witnesses may be lying. One elder responded, "Under a mastic tree," while the other asserted, "Under a large oak." Their conflicting answers exposed their deceit. The people came to realize that these men, supposedly upholders of the law, had used their power to manipulate and destroy an innocent life. The crowd turned against the elders, and the law of Moses punished them with the same sentence they had unjustly sought for Susanna: death. Susanna's story is a powerful reminder of the dangers of corruption and the importance of standing up for what is right, even when it's terrifying. Her courage to face her accusers and Daniel's bravery in speaking out against the wrongful judgment show us that the truth has a way of shining through, no matter how dark the lies are. The story begins with King Nebuchadnezzar, the powerful ruler of Babylon. This king was known for his grandeur and desire to showcase his might. In his quest to solidify his authority, he ordered the construction of a massive golden statue standing nearly 90 feet tall. He then commanded that all his subjects, regardless of their beliefs, bow down and worship this statue whenever they heard the sound of music, flutes, harps, and all kinds of instruments. Among the king's subjects were 3 young men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Their wisdom and integrity earned them high positions in the kingdom, elevating them beyond ordinary citizens. However, they had one unwavering belief: they would only worship the one true God. So, when the music played and the whole city bowed before the golden statue, these 3 stood tall and firm, refusing to kneel. Their refusal was not an act of rebellion against the king, but a demonstration of their unbreakable faith. They believed worshipping the statue would betray their God and would not compromise, no matter what. When King Nebuchadnezzar heard of their defiance, he was furious. He commanded the bringing of them before him and demanded an explanation for their disobedience. He even offered them a second chance, saying, "If you bow down now, I will spare you. If you refuse, I will immediately cast you into the furnace. What God can save you from my hand?" The response of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was both brave and profound. They calmly replied, "King Nebuchadnezzar, we don't need to defend ourselves before you. The God we serve is capable of saving us from the blazing furnace, but even if he doesn't, we want you to know that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden statue you have set up." This declaration showed incredible courage. They were fully aware of the horrifying fate that awaited them, but their faith was stronger than their fear. They were willing to face the flames rather than betray their belief in God. Nebuchadnezzar, enraged by their defiance, ordered a sevenfold increase in furnace temperature. Even the soldiers who threw the 3 men into the furnace perished on the spot, consumed by the heat as the flames roared and crackled with such ferocity. But as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego fell into the heart of the inferno, something incredible happened. Despite facing certain death, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stood unharmed in the midst of the flames. Even more astonishing, a 4th figure appeared with them in the fire, an angel glowing with a brilliant light, protecting them from the deadly heat. Nebuchadnezzar, watching in shock and disbelief, leaped to his feet and exclaimed, "Weren't there 3 men that we tied up and threw into the fire? But I see 4 men walking around unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods." The sight left everyone stunned. When the king called them out of the furnace, they emerged with not a single hair on their heads singed and no smoke odor on their clothes. It was as if they had never been in the fire at all. This miraculous event had a profound impact on Nebuchadnezzar. He recognized that no other God could save in such a way and declared, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants." They trusted in him and defied the king's command, willing to give up their lives rather than worship any god except their own. He then issued a new decree threatening severe punishment for anyone who spoke against their God. The king, who had once demanded worship of his own image, now acknowledged the true power of the God of Israel. It all began when Daniel, who was a trusted advisor in the Babylonian and Persian empires, received a series of dreams and visions that were unlike anything he had ever experienced. These were not ordinary dreams. They were vivid, powerful, and filled with images that were hard to understand. They were messages from God, revealing what was to come for the kingdoms of the world and even for the distant future. In one of these dreams, Daniel saw 4 huge, terrifying beasts rising out of a turbulent sea, each one different and more frightening than the last. The first looked like a lion with an eagle's wings, the second like a bear with 3 ribs in its mouth, the third like a leopard with 4 heads and wings, and the 4th beast was the most terrifying of all. Its teeth were like iron, and it trampled and devoured everything in its path. This last beast had 10 horns, and a little one appeared among them, speaking boastful words and challenging the heavens. Another vision Daniel had involved a massive, dazzling statue made of different metals, a head of gold, a chest and arms of silver, a belly and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, and feet made of a mix of iron and clay. Suddenly, a mysterious stone not cut by human hands came hurtling down and struck the statue's feet, shattering the entire figure into pieces. The stone then grew into a huge mountain that filled the whole earth. This dream, which Daniel interpreted for King Nebuchadnezzar, symbolized a series of empires, starting with Babylon as the head of gold, and followed by lesser kingdoms, represented by the other metals. The mixed iron and clay feet represented a divided kingdom, strong in some ways, but weak and fragile in others. The stone was a symbol of God's eternal kingdom, which would eventually crush all human empires and reign forever. But the most unsettling vision came later, when Daniel saw a ram with 2 horns, representing the Medo-Persian Empire, and a goat with a single prominent horn, symbolizing the Greek Empire led by Alexander the Great. The goat swiftly defeated the ram, but then its horn broke, and 4 smaller horns grew in its place. Out of one of these horns came a fierce and cunning leader who would wage war against God's people, desecrate the temple, and attempt to change laws and times. This vision foretold a period of terrible persecution and suffering for those who remained faithful to God. It spoke of a powerful ruler who would rise, seeking to destroy all that was sacred and holy. Historians believe this prophecy pointed to the actions of Antiochus IV Epiphanes, a cruel ruler who tried to force the Jewish people to abandon their faith. However, the vision also guaranteed the end of this dark period and the restoration of justice. If you're enjoying this deep dive into Daniel's hidden scriptures and you're finding value in these incredible stories, consider supporting the channel by hitting the super thanks button. By doing so, you're helping us continue creating engaging content, exploring fascinating topics, and bringing more hidden stories to light. Reading these prophecies, it's hard not to wonder, are these visions just stories of ancient history, or do they have something to say about our world today? The images of powerful beasts and the rise and fall of kingdoms remind us of the fragile nature of power and how quickly things can change. The prophecy of the divided kingdom made of iron and clay could be a warning about societies that seem strong, but are weakened by internal division and corruption. Daniel's banned scriptures are more than just dramatic narratives filled with lions, fiery furnaces, and astonishing visions. They challenge us to look beyond the surface, to dig deeper into the stories and lessons that have been passed down through generations. Even thousands of years after their writing, these hidden scriptures remain remarkably relevant. They remind us that the battle between good and evil isn't just an ancient struggle. It's a reality that plays out in our world every day. Whether it's in our personal lives, within our communities, or on a global scale, the choices we make have consequences that ripple through time. In a world filled with confusion and conflicting messages, these ancient scriptures remind us of the power of faith and the importance of standing up for what is right, even when it's difficult. They tell us that, like Daniel, we can face the lions in our lives with confidence, knowing that we are not alone. To remain faithful, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. Even against overwhelming odds, one person's courage can make all the difference. The real power of these scriptures isn't just in the words themselves, but in what they inspire us to do and who they encourage us to become.